Hi everyone. So before we begin with this chapter, there's some information about Dr. Catherine that is given in NCERT and I think it might come in NEET or AIMS. Just this line that she reported in her early publications that the curly top virus spreads through a plant via the phloem tissue. And just two of her publications, Plant Anatomy and Anatomy of Seed Plants, which is also known as Webster's of Plant Biology. Moving on, the root system. First, the taproot. Direct elongation of the radicle leads to the formation of primary root, which grows inside the soil, and it bears lateral roots of several orders that are referred to as secondary, tertiary, etc. roots, and this, the primary root and its branches, constitute the taproot system. And the example, most dicot plants, example, mustard. Next is the fibrous root. In this, the primary root is short-lived and is later replaced by a large number of roots originating from the base of the stem. Example, most monocot plants, wheat. Third one is the adventitious root. No primary root, but many roots arise from parts other than the radicle. Example, grass, monstera, and banyan tree. Functions of the root system are very general. Absorption of water and minerals, anchorage to plant parts. Anchorage means giving support, storage, and this is a point which I never focused on before, synthesis of PGRs, that is plant growth regulators, and this is given in NCERT. We move on to the regions of the root. First is the root cap, which covers and protects the apex of the root. This is the apex and the root cap is here. Next is the meristematic zone above the root cap, where cells are very small, thin-walled, and have dense protoplasm, and they divide very repeatedly. Above the meristematic zone is the elongation zone, where cells undergo rapid elongation and enlargement. They then gradually differentiate and mature, and then this is the maturation zone. This has a characteristic property that there is a presence of root hairs, which is nothing but the epidermal cells. Next is the modifications of root. I've just summarized a few points here. Taproots of carrot and turnip, adventitious roots of sweet potato, these store food. Prop roots of banyan tree, which help in giving support. Then stilt roots, stems of maize and sugarcane. They have roots on the lower nodes. These also help in support. Roots of plants which come out vertically and help in respiration. Plants in swampy areas. These roots are called pneumatophores. We move on to the stem. For the introduction, this is all. This is the node from where the leaf arises, and distance between two nodes, this is the internode. Now modifications of stem, this is very important. For the underground modification, we have potato, ginger, turmeric, zameenkand, and colocasia. All these store food, and this is important, ginger and turmeric are rhizomes. Now the aerial modifications, tendrils which develop from axillary buds and help in climbing. Example, cucumber, pumpkin, watermelon, and grapevines. Now thorns also develop from axillary buds, and these help in protection. Example, citrus and bougainvillea. Now phyloclad, this is very important. Phylos here means leaf and clados means stem. So basically this is a stem that takes over the function of a leaf. and that function is photosynthesis. Example, Opuntia and Euphorbia. Now the subaerial modifications, grass and strawberry. Stems of these plants spread to new niches. And mint and jasmine. Jasmine is an example of stolon. So this is how it goes. There's this curvature in the stems. In plants like mint and jasmine, a slender lateral branch arises from the base of the main axis, and after growing aerially for some time, it comes downwards to touch the ground. So I just read out the NCERT line for you. Next is Pistia and Acornia. These are aquatic plants which have rosette of leaves and tuft of roots. Next is banana, pineapple and chrysanthemum. In these, the lateral branches originate from the basal and underground portion of the main stem. So if this is the main stem, few branches grow horizontally beneath the ground and then come out obliquely upward, giving rise to leafy shoots. We move on to the leaf. There's this line in NCERT that says leaves originate from shoot apical meristems and are arranged in an acropetal order. So I've written it down here for you. Acropetal means older at the base and younger towards apex. A simple structure of a leaf. This is the petiole, stalk of a leaf. This is the lamina or the leaf blade. This is a stipule. And here is the axillary bud. Stipule is just a small leaf-like structure. In monocots, there is a sheathing leaf base, which means the leaf base expands into a sheath covering the stem partially or wholly. And in some leguminous plants, the leaf base may become swollen, which is called pulvinous. So some leguminous plants have pulvinate leaf base. Now we move on to the venation. Just two types, reticulate and parallel. Parallel is when the veinlets are parallel to the midrib, like this. Example, most monocots. Reticulate is this, when they are not parallel and they form a network kind of a thing. Example, dicots. Now, there are different types of arrangements of leaf. This one is simple and these are compound. A leaf is said to be simple when its lamina is entire. By lamina is entire, we mean something like this, or when it is incised. This is incised, but the incisions do not touch the midrib. Here the incisions do not touch the midrib. Whereas in compound leaves, we can see that the incisions are touching the midrib here and here. So this is simple and this is compound. So we can call these as leaflets, but this is not a leaflet. And this is a very important line, that a bud is present in the axil of petiole in both simple and compound leaves, but not in the axil of leaflets of the compound leaf. By this, NCERT means here is a bud, here is a bud, and here, but not here. These are the leaflets and this is the leaf, the compound leaf. So a bud is present in the petiole of the leaf but not the leaflets. Compound is further of two types, pinnate and palmate. Pinnate is when all the leaflets are present on a common axis here. And in palmate, they are attached at a common point. Next is phyllotaxy, which is just the pattern of arrangement of leaves on the stem or branch. 3 types: alternate, opposite, whorled. Alternate is when the leaves are alternate. This is the node, this is the node, and leaves are alternate. For remembering the examples, I have this mnemonic kind of thing: scam, sunflower, china rose, mustard, and A will remind us that it is for alternate. Opposite, like this, same node and opposite leaves. Example: guava and calotropis, and GOC. O here reminds us opposite. Whorled is Alstonia, where from one node more than 2 leaves originate. Now the modifications. If the leaf is modified into a tendril, example peas, spine, cacti, and onion and garlic, here the leaves store food. Now phylloid. In this, the petioles expand and they undergo photosynthesis. Example: Australian acacia. In pitcher plant and Venus flytrap, the pitcher is modification of a leaf lamina. I always get confused between tendrils as stem as modified tendrils and a leaf as modified tendrils. So I just thought I'll do this short recap. When a stem is modified into a tendril, example is gourds, and when a leaf is modified into a tendril, example is peas. Also there is a difference between thorns and spines. When there are pointed thin structures, when a stem is modified into a pointed thin structure, it is a thorn and it is often woody. An example is citrus and bougainvillea. And when a leaf is modified into such a structure, it is a modification of a spine, and the example is cactus. Now we move on to inflorescence. It is just the arrangement of flowers on the axis. There's this line in NCERT: when a shoot tip transforms into a flower, it is always solitary. And inflorescence is of 2 types: racemose and zymose. Zymose is when the main axis terminates into a flower. Okay, just assume this is a flower. And it is basipetal. And racemose in when the main axis does not terminate in a flower. So I have remembered it like it keeps racing upwards, so it does not terminate. That's how I remembered. I hope it helps. Next is the flower: calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Calyx is the outermost, gynoecium is the innermost. Calyx, also known as sepals, generally green, and corolla, petals, the colored ones. Now the terms gamo, petalous, or polypetalous, these are for calyx and corolla. For androecium and gynoecium, we have different terms. That's why I've written it here. There's this point in lily: calyx and corolla are not distinct, and this is termed as perianth, and this is a very important point. We move on to the symmetry. This was just for the introduction. Symmetry, we have actinomorphic, zygomorphic, and asymmetric. Suppose this is a flower. For actinomorphic symmetry, it is also known as radial symmetry, which means we can divide the whole flower into 2 equal parts by cutting it in any plane. If we cut it from here, 2 equal parts, here 2 equal parts. So this is radial symmetry. Example: mustard, datura, and chili. Zygomorphic means bilateral. We can only divide the flower into 2 equal parts through just one plane, if we cut it through just one particular plane. Example: pea, gulmohar, bean, and acacia. And asymmetric, kanna. based on the position of calyx, corolla and adosium in respect of the ovary on thalamus, the flowers are described as hypogynous, perigynous and epigynous. Hypogynous means, hypo means below, gynous means ovary. That is, everything else is below the ovary, which means the ovary is superior. Example, mustard, China rose and brinjal. Perigynous means half inferior, plum, peach and rose. Like most P and then rose. Epigynous is everything is above the ovary, inferior ovary. Guava, cucumber and ray florets of sunflower. Now estivation. It is judged how the sepals or petals are arranged with respect to each other. In valvate, there is no overlapping. Example, calotropis. For twisted, each is overlapped by the other and it overlaps other. So each is overlapped by one and is overlapping the other. This is twisted, China rose, lady's finger and cotton, Malvaceae family. Imbricate is no particular order, Acacia, Gulmohar. Now vexillary, this is the mother axis and there are total 5 petals. This is the standard which overlaps the 2 lateral petals or wings, which in turn overlap the small anterior petals, and these are also known as keel. And this is a characteristic property of pea and beans. Androecium, a sterile stamen, is known as staminode, and when stamens are attached to the petals, it is known as epipetalous, example brinjal. When stamen is attached to the perianth, it is known as epiphyllous, example is lily. हमने perianth पढ़ा ही सिर्फ lily में है, so stamen and perianth attached, lily. Now free stamens are known as polyandrous, and when the stamens are united, monodelphous, when they are united into one bunch, China rose, Malvaceae family. Diadelphous, when there are 2 bundles, when there are 2 bundles, P, and when there are more than 2 bundles, Polyadelphous, citrus. Now there could be variation in length of filaments. In mustard, Brassicaceae family, it is known as tetradynamis. Tetra here is for the 4 inner filaments which are longer and 2 outer short filaments. Salvia, didynamis, here di means 2 inner short and 2 outer long. Basically dynamis means this is for the longer one. So here tetradynamis because 4 are long, and here didynamis because 2 are long. Now the gynoecium. Epocarpus, when the carpels are free. Epo means without, so if you could remember it that way. The carpels are free, example lotus and rose. Syncarpus, fused carpels, example mustard and tomato. Now the placentation. Marginal, example pea. In marginal, the placenta forms a ridge along the ventral suture of the ovary, and the ovules are born on this ridge, forming 2 rows, example pea. Now in exile placentation, the placenta is exile. By exile they mean on the axis, and the ovules are attached to it in a multilocular ovary. Multilocular ovary, and this is said to be exile. Example China rose, tomato and lemon. Now this is parietal. Here the ovules develop on the inner wall of the ovary or on the peripheral part. Here the ovary is one chambered, but it becomes two chambered due to the formation of a false septum. This is very important. Example, mustard and argemone. Next is the free central. The ovules are born on the central axis and the septa are absent. There is no division as such. Example, dianthus and primrose. In basal presentation, the placenta develops at the base of the ovary and a single ovule is attached to it. Example, sunflower and marigold. Now we move on to the fruit. Generally, the fruit consists of a wall or pericarp and seeds. The pericarp may be dry or fleshy. And when the pericarp is thick and fleshy, it is differentiated into the outer epicarp, which is thin in case of mango, middle mesocarp, which is fleshy and edible, again in case of mango, and the endocarp, which is stony and hard. So this total is the pericarp. And in coconut, the mesocarp is fibrous. And both these fruits are drupe. Very important. Also, both of them are one-seeded and develop from monocarpillary superior ovary. Seed. The ovules after fertilization become seed, and seed has two parts, seed coat and embryo. Embryo further radicle, embryonal axis, and one or two cotyledons. For a dicot seed, dicot here means two cotyledons. There's the seed coat, which is divided into outer testa and inner tegmen. There is hilum, which is a scar on the seed coat, and micropyle is a small pore. Then we have the plumule and the radicle which later forms the root, and the two cotyledons. The cotyledons here are fleshy and full of reserve food. Castor is an example of endospermous, and pea, bean and gram are non-endospermous. By endospermous we mean in castor the endosperm is formed as a result of double fertilization. It is a storing food tissue, and in these plants the endosperm is not present in mature seeds, so these are called non-endospermous. Now the monocot seed, they are generally endospermic, that is they have the endosperm, but orchids are non-endospermic, so this is like an exception. This is the structure. Here the seed coat and the fruit wall are fused. This part is the endosperm, which is bulky and it stores food, and the endosperm is covered by proteinous layer, alluron layer. Now this is the scutellum, large shield shaped cotyledon. This is the only cotyledon because monocot, single cotyledon. This is the plumule and it is covered by a sheath which is known as colleptile. And this is the radicle which is covered by a sheath known as colerizza. And here the embryo is small and this is the endosperm. Now the floral diagrams. This is for Brassicaceae. This means actinomorphic, radial symmetry. This is bisexual. This is for calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Calyx is the outermost. Here 2 plus 2 means 2 outer side and 2 inner side. 4 means 4 are on the same radial line, like this, same circle. A 2 plus 4, remember tetradynamis, 4 inner, 2 outer. So these are on the same circle and 2 are outside. Now superior ovary, if the bar is below G, it means the ovary is superior, and here 2 stands for bicarpellary and the bracket represent syncarpus. Can you see this part here? I have zoomed it for you a little. This is parietal because this is the false septum. Next we come to Fabaceae family. Here zygomorphic, bisexual, calyx 5 fused. 5 are on the same circle and fused. Corolla 1 plus 2 plus 2. So this is 1 plus 2 plus 2 fused, vexillary. Androecium is 9 plus 1, didynamis, because there are 2 groups. These are 9 fused and this is 1. So this forms 2 groups. And the ovary is superior, monocarpellary. Next is Solanaceae family. Again actinomorphic, bisexual, calyx 5 fused, corolla 5 fused, androecium also 5 fused, and and the corolla and androecium are fused together, so epipetalous condition in Solanaceae. Again superior ovary, bicarpellary and syncarpus. The last family is Liliaceae. Again actinomorphic, bisexual. Now perianth. Perianth is a characteristic feature of Liliaceae family. The androecium 3 plus 3 and the gynoecium 3, tricarpellary, syncarpus and superior ovary. And here we can see exile placentation, multilocular ovary.